Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the fourth episode of the CVUO Podcast. Today we have Marissa and Malek talking about bilingualism. Enjoy.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm here on the podcast for the CVUO podcast series with Marissa St. Amant, our commissioner for French affairs with UOSU, and I'm the CVUO VP bilingual. So, as you guys might be guessing right now, the topic of this podcast today will be bilingualism and kind of the, space it takes in campus life and in campus extracurriculars in general as well. So I'll let Marissa introduce herself.
Yeah, hi. Like Malek said, I'm Marissa, the Francophone Affairs Commissioner for UOSU. I guess I can talk a little bit about my background in bilingualism in student life specifically. So I used to be the director of bilingualism for IPSA, the International Policy and Political Studies Student Association. I messed up that acronym. It's very long. But yeah, so basically I translated everything that needed to be translated for my student association. I also worked at the Bilingualism Center last year, and I've been involved in a club as well as the communications director in translating things. Yeah.
All right. So for myself, I've been involved in bilingualism and language communication for quite a bit on campus. One of the big things that put me on the map when it comes to bilingualism was being VP bilingual for the SSA, so Science Students Association for the ones that maybe don't know the acronym, but essentially being like the biggest Fed body on campus. We had a lot of promotional content, a lot of events, and it was kind of my responsibility to, one, obviously translate everything, which is very time consuming, but also to make sure that the events are inclusive of the bilingual community and that all of our services are available in both language. So I think both having been, VP bilinguals for student associations, we definitely relate on one, the struggle, but also on the impact it has on the students we're helping.
Yeah, when you say struggles, what are you specifically talking about here? I want to know if we're on the same page.
Personally, for me, it was translating the meeting minutes for our 5-hour long meetings, because that would be 15 pages of translation, and that definitely, I think, was the bane of my existence.
But I definitely don't miss that.
Exactly. I'm not doing it this year, so I'm blessed when it comes to that. But I've also gotten involved with quite a few clubs on campus that promote bilingualism through offering services that are available in both languages. For example, I'm VP Communications for the Ignite Medical Case Competition. So it's a little research competition where people come together and learn about research and the medical field and kind of share their ideas and create abstracts. And all competitors can apply in the language of their choosing. So it's really important for me to be able to put out promotional content in French as well, so we can reach that audience as well. And obviously, CVUO, I'm the bilingual, and I'm helping out with bilingualism with other clubs as well that I'm part in. But yeah, I definitely think that outside of having I wonder if you feel the same about that, but I feel sometimes, even if your position isn't necessarily about bilingualism, having that background in bilingualism and having been bilingual for so many things really helps you put everything into perspective when it comes to making your events accessible. Do you agree?
Yeah, because it's always in the back of your mind. Even not having experience in bilingualism specifically, just being a bilingual person, or a francophone, you sort of just think about that automatically. You're like, well, maybe my friends who don't really understand English, they might not be feeling as welcome in this event if we're not advertising it in both languages. I think that also leads into people sort of being put into that role because they're bilingual. Like, if
I
you
understand.
are the only bilingual exec of a club, for example, everyone just turns to you for translations or like that sort of thing. I've noticed that happens a lot.
I think that's something that happens with like every minority in a way, in the sense that you kind of become the spokesperson of your group whenever you're put in that situation, because let's say like as a minority of color, for example, your existence in these spaces is advocacy, and you kind of have a role to always have at the back of your mind that your experience is not the same experience as the other people. And I think it makes you way more open-minded to be bilingual, because you understand that you've had to be in situations where there was a language barrier for you to understand that what you're doing can create a language barrier for others.
Definitely.
For example, I remember I was mostly a francophone before maybe grade 11-ish, but then I moved abroad for my studies, and my studies there were only in English, so I kind of had to adapt and learn the language, and that was a big cultural shock for me, I guess, which I understand can be for a lot of francophone people moving in, let's say from France to uOttawa for their studies. Either the university is bilingual, it's really important to make sure that our student life also is bilingual.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you have a similar experience?
I would say like definitely moving from, I live in I'm from Saskatchewan originally, which is a very Anglophone province. But I went to school in French, and both my parents are bilingual. My dad is francophone, my mom is anglophone. So like I definitely wouldn't say that I had any there weren't very many barriers in terms of language. But I definitely lived in a very bilingual environment.
All right. Thank you a lot for your insight. I'll move on to, I guess, our next topic of discussion, but this time we'll be answering in French. So I'll be asking you the question in French. For some of the viewers that are new to the podcast, just FYI, we might have some bits in French, some in English, and you're welcome to try your best to understand it, but you can also skip through it. And if you don't understand what the specific topic we're talking about is, but I'll move on to asking you our next question, which I'll try to phrase it in French. But pourquoi penses-tu qu'en général, c'est vraiment important pour les clubs étudiants, les associations étudiantes et pour le syndicat étudiant d'essayer d'être aussi bilingue que possible?
Ben, c'est vraiment une question d'inclusion et d'être aussi inclusif et accueillant que possible, accommodant aussi à tous les étudiants. Je disais, je crois que c'est vraiment une question d'inclusion. Le plus de personnes qu'on peut atteindre, qu'on peut accueillir, le mieux. Je crois que quand on ajoute l'aspect de bilinguisme à un club ou à une association ou à une organisation, ça ouvre plus de portes pour les membres, ça donne l'option à plus de gens à participer, et c'est vraiment ça permet de plus engager la communauté étudiante. Donc c'est vraiment dans l'intérêt des clubs de devenir bilingue ou de promouvoir le bilinguisme.
Et aussi, je pense que c'est vraiment important d'avoir beaucoup d'environnements bilingues, parce que déjà ce serait pas juste, mais aussi c'est un peu dans la nature de la vie universitaire de s'impliquer dans notre communauté étudiante. Et puis j'ai l'impression que créer un environnement qui offre beaucoup d'opportunités bilingues pour les étudiants qui sont complètement francophones leur permet vraiment de s'intégrer dans la communauté universitaire, et puis au final va souvent les encourager à un peu ne pas s'isoler socialement, et aussi à chercher à promouvoir le bilinguisme de leur propre façon, parce que très souvent il y a des individus qui, on va dire, ont le français comme première langue, mais qui sont pas hyper confortables avec leur anglais. Avoir des clubs qui leur permettent de s'exprimer en français leur permet un peu de s'ouvrir aux perspectives des autres, de pratiquer leur voix, mais aussi les expose au côté un peu anglophone de la chose et les encourage vraiment à devenir des étudiants bilingues plus équilibrés, ce qui peut énormément les aider par la suite dans le marché du travail.
Oui, très bon point.
Bah.
C'est vrai que pas tous les clubs sont bilingues. Et il n'y a pas d'exigence de la part de l'université ou du syndicat que les clubs soient bilingues, mais c'est vraiment encouragé qu'ils le soient. Mais selon toi, pourquoi est-ce que il y a tellement de clubs ou d'organisations qui ne sont pas encore bilingues?
Je pense que c'est définitivement une question de statistique, bien sûr. Il y a moins d'étudiants bilingues que d'étudiants purement anglophones sur le campus. Et en règle générale, on s'est habitué, étant dans une société qui est très américano-centriste, je suppose, on vit dans un environnement qui glorifie beaucoup l'utilisation de l'anglais et qui très souvent un peu met de côté des individus d'autres minorités linguistiques. Et puis, même si les deux langues officielles canadiennes sont le français et l'anglais, très souvent, il y a beaucoup de nos étudiants qui ont vraiment juste accès à des services et de l'éducation en anglais, ce qui fait en sorte que c'est un peu plus difficile pour un club qui a pas énormément de membres bilingues de créer un bilinguisme qui semble sincère, parce que très souvent c'est OK, on est 9 personnes qui parlent qu'anglais, une personne bilingue, on va leur faire traduire nos choses pour pouvoir atteindre plus d'étudiants, ce qui est vraiment pas un problème parce que c'est ce qu'on encourage. On veut vraiment produire du contenu promotionnel dans les deux langues. Par contre, je pense qu'une des façons une des raisons principales justement pourquoi beaucoup de clubs sont unilingues anglais, c'est une question de manque de représentation. Et aussi, parfois, c'est parce que certains individus, je suppose, en position de pouvoir dans ces clubs-là, n'ont pas nécessairement n'ont pas nécessairement une appréciation pour les avantages du bilinguisme et et un peu avoir les raisons pourquoi c'est important de faire un effort supplémentaire pour inclure les étudiants bilingues. Parce que très souvent, ils ont été exposés à des environnements unilingues anglais. Donc, je pense vraiment que une des façons déjà, bien sûr, encourager le bilinguisme chez les étudiants va augmenter un peu le placement bilingue, ce qui va augmenter la visibilité des étudiants bilingues, mais aussi d'un peu mener par l'exemple en ayant des événements bilingues et des associations et en ayant par exemple un syndicat bilingue. Puis c'est super important ta position au sein du syndicat parce que ça montre que beaucoup d'éléments importants de la vie étudiante sont bilingues et doivent rester bilingues, ce qui encourage les clubs à faire de même, versus si beaucoup des grandes associations ou des syndicats, etc., étaient unilingues anglais, ça donnerait pas vraiment le bon exemple au club. Mais oui, définitivement, je pense que c'est un défi parce que le français, c'est déjà une langue assez difficile et c'est assez difficile de trouver des gens qui sont confortables à s'exprimer en français.
C'est ça.
Donc, c'est vraiment un des aspects difficiles de la chose.
Oui, et pour revenir sur ton point sur quand il y a genre une personne de bilingue dans un exec de 9 personnes, ça fait beaucoup de travail pour cette personne-là. La traduction, c'est pas facile. Ça dépend de ton niveau de français, ton niveau de confort dans l'écriture. Mais c'est vraiment, c'est pas super simple comme travail. Et même durant les événements, si c'est un événement dit bilingue, il faut une personne qui traduit en même temps que la personne parle. Et ça rend un événement ça peut alourdir l'événement. Ça peut aussi it's nerve-wracking for the person translating. Like, c'est stressant.
I totally understand. Actually, could you further elaborate on some of the challenges you've been facing as a translation entity on campus?
Yeah. I mean, like, just things like technical terms, translating technical terms and stuff. I didn't get a lot of that in, like, the club or, I mean, there was technical terms and like social media terms.
Mm-hmm.
Things like I can't think of anything specific, but
Swipe left, for example.
yeah, things like that like you just don't even say in French. Like there's some expressions that just don't translate. Another issue that's sort of like aside from this, but people on your team who just like they expect very, very high standards and like you to translate something immediately.
Yeah.
That it can
feel
sometimes
is
be
just
very like unrealistic.
Exactly, and I've had that happen to me today. Actually, somebody just said like, "Can you translate this within the next 2 hours?" And I did it because I was like at a coffee shop on my computer and I was available. But sometimes I'm not available, and you really have to set boundaries. And I literally, I feel like last minute translations can be super stressful because you're kind of putting the weight on bilingualism on somebody with a deadline, and we're often people that are very involved in other things as well, so we don't necessarily have the time to answer a 3 a.m. text with a translation, but we really do our best, and I find it really important and very heartwarming when people really appreciate the effort we put in, and they realize that usually you would have one person creating the promotional content, that's their whole job, but like we're translating the content but also actively participating in so many other aspects of the process. But yeah, it's definitely very difficult. I agree with you, and on that actually yeah
Go ahead.
what would be actually the hardest thing you've translated in your times as
I would say like I think last year we were trying to translate the IPSA chants for 101 week.
Oh no.
That is so hard to do.
Because they're so catchy.
Like they're all in English, they all rhyme, they like have like a certain rhythm to them. It's just almost impossible to translate something like that. So like I worked with my committee, and we like one of my committee members put together like some like pretty good translations for it, but it just wasn't the same. Like it's hard to do that sort of thing. I would say that'd be the hardest thing I had to translate.
I remember when they tried to do as the show me how you get down for 101 week in French. That was a whole mess. But yeah, I definitely agree. Like chants and songs are very hard to translate. That's why I usually go like full, like I become unhinged and I literally just make a whole new song in French that kind of tackles the same themes but isn't nearly the same, because sometimes it's good to have something different that is just as good versus trying to like make it match.
Yeah, direct translations are not always the answer.
And I'd say like the thing that was hardest for me was on SSA translating bits of the Constitution. Because I feel like for our social media posts, we have a lot of freedom, or for our emails or newsletters or any other contact with the students, we have a lot of freedom as long as we kind of like convey the same information. It doesn't really matter how we do it. And I usually translate by like sometimes changing a full sentence structure or using words that the person in English didn't use because I feel like it better fits the nuances of the French language. But the constitutions have to be very specific in their wording.
Very technical, like
exactly. Yeah. And some terms like I don't know, reaching quorum in this assembly, whatever, you have to make sure to always like look up in past amendments to the Constitution and then finding the terms again to make sure it's said in the same thing. Because sometimes like association council can be said in so many different ways in French, and you need to make sure you're using the one that fits exactly what was used before.
Context is everything.
Exactly. So I feel like it's definitely way harder to translate when within a rigid format, and that's probably why like a lot of official documents are translated by professional translators, because it's a lot more work versus kind of like not that it's less important, but reaching out to students, you have a lot more freedom as to what you can do.
Because you can get the message across. And as long as you do that, it's fine.
Yes. All right. So, do you want to follow up with our next topic? Maybe in French this time?
Sure. We were talking about translations, but quel est ton processus pour les traductions d'habitude? Quel genre d'outils est-ce que tu utilises?
Personnellement, j'ai un système qui fonctionne assez bien et que j'ai utilisé justement dans la SSC, mais aussi dans d'autres un peu groupes étudiants desquels j'ai fait partie. Mais très souvent, je demande aux gens de m'envoyer de créer un Google Doc avec leur partie du texte en anglais et puis par la suite de me laisser de l'espace pour que je puisse faire la traduction en français par la suite. Et puis, ce que j'aime beaucoup, c'est que ça me donne un peu l'opportunité de traduire à mon rythme parce que je peux toujours venir rajouter des choses au document. 2, ça apparaît dans le Google Drive de la personne. Donc, surtout quand tu as quand t'as un courriel spécifique à ton association, par exemple, promotion à SSAAIS, par exemple. Très souvent, ça va apparaître dans leur Google Drive, vu que ça a été créé comme un Google Doc, ce qui permet de retrouver des traductions plus facilement, et puis ils peuvent avoir réutilisé les traductions que j'ai utilisées dans le passé, au lieu de me demander de retraduire la même chose. Et, ce que j'aime beaucoup, c'est que question, au lieu de m'envoyer des courriels hyper longs avec tout ce qu'il y a à traduire, ils peuvent juste m'envoyer un courriel. Voici ce qu'est la traduction. J'aurais besoin vers cette période, ou whatever, comme une échéance. Et puis par la suite, juste le lien, qui est une ligne, et puis qui est vraiment facile à juste cliquer pour moi. Et puis, ce que je faisais quand j'avais une boîte de réception assez occupée avec la SSA, je faisais juste mettre une petite étoile sur ce que j'ai pas traduit. Et puis par la suite, quand j'avais du temps, j'allais dans mes emails avec les étoiles, mes starred emails, et puis je pouvais juste cliquer sur les liens, puis à y accéder. Et ce qui est encore bien, c'est que quand on utilise des plateformes de gestion de travail en groupe, comme Slack, Asana, Monday.com, toutes les différentes versions de la chose, les gens peuvent juste justement mettre sur ta liste de tâches le lien, et puis c'est facile, tu peux juste cliquer le lien, et puis ça compresse vraiment bien les choses, et puis personnellement, j'adore. Sinon, par rapport à la spécificité du processus, avant, je traduisais tout à la main, parce que j'étais un peu un snob des logiciels de traduction. J'étais comme, c'est pas la bonne chose.
Je crois que tout le monde a ce
processus, oui.
Ce processus, oui.
Parce que justement, comme j'avais l'impression que ça me prenait parfois plus de temps de le traduire via un truc et puis après de le modifier que tout simplement de le produire à partir de ma tête. Par contre, récemment, j'ai découvert l'extension pour ordinateur DeepL versus utiliser leur site web. Et puis, ça me permet de mettre à traduire n'importe quel petit morceau de phrase vraiment facilement. Et puis, par la suite, comme je peux faire des modifications sur la traduction qui vont ajuster le reste de la phrase. Ce qui veut dire que si j'aime pas un certain mot, je peux le modifier et puis ça va ajuster le reste de la phrase au fur et à mesure. Ce qui me donne beaucoup plus de contrôle sur la traduction et qui fait en sorte qu'au final, je finis par avoir une traduction qui fonctionne bien grammaticalement, bien sûr, mais aussi qui un peu fonctionne avec mon style d'écriture et mes préférences, sans compromettre justement l'efficacité du processus. Donc c'est un peu cet entre-deux que j'aime bien. J'aime pas directement la traduction, bien sûr, de la machine, parce que la machine souvent est trop formelle ou pas assez formelle. Mais une fois que j'ai beaucoup de modifications, ça me permet un peu de trouver un équilibre, puis ça m'a sauvé énormément de temps récemment. J'aurais tellement aimé avoir ça pendant que je faisais mes longues traductions pour la SSA. Ça a été vraiment utile. Par contre, bien sûr, j'encourage pas juste d'utiliser la machine et puis pas y toucher. Mais ouais, qu'est-ce que t'en penses de ton bord?
Non, j'allais justement mentionner DeepL. C'est vraiment bien comme outil. Google Translate, je crois que tout le monde a un consensus qu'on le touche pas.
On peut l'utiliser pour des mots spécifiques des fois, mais très rarement.
Yeah. Mais pour des mots techniques, je trouve que Lingui, je sais pas comment le dire. Lingui
Yeah.
est très bien comme outil parce que ça donne les mots dans le contexte d'une phrase avec plusieurs exemples. Mais ton processus est super organisé. Le mien était plutôt les gens m'envoyaient par courriel ou par Google Drive ce qu'ils voulaient de traduire. et je faisais juste un side-by-side.
Ok.
Je traduisais à côté de l'original. Et si c'était quelque chose de vraiment court, comme juste un caption pour Instagram ou quoi que ce soit, il m'envoyait juste un message. Et d'habitude, je répondais pas mal rapidement.
Okay.
Mais oui, au début, j'admets que je voulais pas utiliser des outils pour traduire. J'étais genre, non, je suis bilingue, je peux faire sans outils, mais c'est vraiment dans l'intérêt de l'efficacité. C'est vraiment bien.
Et puis justement, je pense que malgré le fait que j'avais un système très organisé pour mes traductions et puis j'ai créé des échéances tout de suite au début, bien sûr, une fois que tu t'es plus confortable avec ton équipe de promotion, comme notre gestionnaire des réseaux sociaux, c'est une de mes meilleures amies. Donc, elle faisait juste m'envoyer parfois des petites traductions quand c'est des mots par-ci par-là. J'aime juste pas justement quand les gens assument que tu vas traduire des longs paragraphes pour eux parce qu'ils les envoient par texte. Parce que traduire par texte, devoir remonter le texte, relire la phrase, redescendre, et traduire, c'est vraiment pas efficace. Donc, moi, j'étais comme email où je le touche pas, sauf par exception très spécifique. Mais Google Docs, c'est vraiment pratique parce que tu peux avoir tout dans le même document. C'est vraiment mieux que m'envoyer un Word document, je suis obligé de le prendre, créer un nouveau Word document, le resave dans mon ordi, le traduire et puis te renvoyer les deux. Ça fait un peu chier personnellement et puis ça rend ça plus lent.
Oui, c'est aussi utile quand pas tout le monde a ce luxe, mais d'avoir un coéquipier bilingue qui peut traduire, ensuite juste vérifier avec toi. Ça m'a vraiment aidé parce que surtout à l'AIP, le directeur des communications était bilingue, donc il écrivait ce qu'il voulait dire, ensuite il le passait par moi. Mais parfois, s'il y a d'autres membres bilingues qui sont en charge de la promotion, etc., ça se peut qu'ils font juste publier de quoi
Ils te contournent.
sans consulter.
Ça, je me suis battu beaucoup de
ça
fois.
m'énerve. Oh my god.
Like, the number of times I had to fight somebody over this.
Oh my god.
c'est vraiment fou. Oh my god, je me rappelle. Puis
Like,
tout
I'm
ce
not a
qu'après ça...
micromanager, but...
Same. It's like, you don't want to micromanage, but if it's part of your position and it's literally within your mandate to do something, it's kind of important to at least be managing that.
Ça remet sur toi.
Exactly. Like, I've had people, like, not send me death threats, but, like, attack me over a bad translation. I was like, my French is impeccable. Don't at me. I did not translate that. Because, like, you try your best to have it look very, like, nice, professional every single time. And then somebody, like, translates it, like, est-ce que tu connais que je suis? And you're fucked. Oops. You might want to edit that out. Maybe bleep this. But, unless we're allowed to swear. Are we allowed to swear, Hassan? Yeah, swearing allowed. Yes, thank you. I can live my non-censored life now. But yes, should we move on? I guess, let's see. I guess that's a really quick one. Why is it important to you to have the French first, then the English when it comes to translations and social media posts?
That's a question actually that comes up a lot. Some people don't think it's like super important. I think it's a newer thing with uOsu. But something that I usually say is that like French, the campus is bilingual. But we recognize that French is the minority language. And so just to sort of keep things even and make sure that francophones feel like they're not just like an afterthought to put French first and then English. And it's not that hard. I know some clubs that I've been involved with, they choose to do English first. Like, it's really not I don't know.
Biggest deal.
Yeah, but it's just like a nice extra step to take.
Yeah. And I definitely think that having a lot of French first content on your social media page definitely it's kind of assumed that all content will be available in English, but it's never assumed that it will be in French. So when people
Exactly.
see that there is French popping up on your profile, they know that you're bilingual automatically.
Like c'est rassurant. It's
Exactly.
reassuring.
So like if you're a French speaker and you go through somebody's profile and the French is always put second, you might not be able to know that there are opportunities for bilingualism in that association or whatever else. So what I've been doing is, first, let's say everything was French first. I was very adamant about that.
Me too.
And everybody knows that student associations are mostly bilingual, which makes it very easy for us to put French first without people thinking we're like a French club or losing any clout. And from the statistics that we got on our social media, there's very few people that like will click off or stop watching a story because there's French first. We've always had very high reach regardless, and people are used to it. But I know for like some smaller clubs, they've been like wanting to promo and they want to have, let's say, like a certain word in English pop up first and then the word in French. So usually one of the compromises I make, and it usually ends up being better off when it comes to the well-being of the club's media image, is to have alternating posts. For the competition I was telling you about, for which I'm VP Communications, we would do like one post in English, one post in French, and it kind of creates a grid where you can easily see that there is like French and English. So the posts will always be bilingual, like one slide in French, one slide in English, but their order will alternate, so that every student can feel welcomed looking into that profile. Like, hey, there's words in French, there's words in English, but as soon as they slide, they know every single post is bilingual. And for the captions, I haven't been that picky about it. It's fine, I think, to have the captions start out in English as long as they say like French follows. Especially like if it's a short caption and like 95% of your audience speaks English, then you want to have your pop in word right there, and then French follows. It's not the worst deal, but I still like it when French always comes first. And I think for more official associations, it's imperative to have French first.
And I think another point that I just thought of during events, when there's someone like moderating or hosting the event, and like, giving announcements, if the English is first, people tend to stop listening once they switch to French, and which is very like, it can be disruptive in worst case, and just like sort of disrespectful. So I think the best like compromise for that, I usually try to cut it into smaller portions, just like say something in French and then the same thing in English, and then just keep alternating instead of like one huge long speech in English and then the same huge long speech in French, because people are not gonna listen for the whole thing.
I definitely think it makes a lot of sense. And also, like, if you have a slightly longer, I guess, part of your speech, and you do it in French, usually like people know enough French to be able to like listen to bits of it and kind of get the gist of what you're saying. So they'll still be like interested in what you're saying, and it might help them be exposed to like more French. But then when the English comes on, either done by yourself as well or somebody else, they can kind of like make some sense out of the ton of French they've just heard, and it really helps people in their process of understanding French, because one of the big reasons why people come to Ottawa is because it's a bilingual community, and it's a huge asset. I've gotten so many jobs from being bilingual. I've had so many opportunities open to me from being bilingual, and I'm very proud of how Ottawa is doing their best to promote bilingualism. Obviously, there's still ways to go, but it's just like, what would be the benefits actually of being bilingual for any aspect of university life, according to you?
I would say, like I mentioned before, to be more inclusive, more welcoming, you get more students involved in whatever it is you are doing. like the bigger, like the more bilingual you are, and the more like you reach out actively to students and to student populations, the more engagement you're going to get, the more successful your club or organization or whatever it is you're doing is going to be. And it's not only about the club, it's about welcoming students, like, and not only focusing on like one group, whether or not that's intentional. I would say, yeah, definitely just being more welcoming is like the biggest part of that.
And very often it might feel like it's not the strategic move to do, even though it is. But catering to minorities, whether they're linguistic minorities or in any other situation, if we're talking about accessibility needs, for example, for
Definitely,
disabled
yeah.
individuals or et cetera, I definitely think that it is very important, and you're kind of paving the way for the future if you're including even one more person because your club is bilingual, or including one more person at your event because your event is accessible, or literally any other aspect of daily life, corporations hiring more people of color, et cetera. Just like having a more diverse pool of people, even though it might not seem like it makes the whole difference if there's like 20 Stacys and one non-Stacy. But I definitely think that, no offense to anybody named Stacy, I'm sorry. But basically, I definitely think that just bring that extra perspective really like enriches your club, and and having a group with different point of views is super important. And the point of, especially in Canada, the point of view of somebody that has lived in French and experienced bilingualism in multiple aspects of its, I guess, entity, I think is super valuable, and definitely down the line as well, when it comes to the work market or whatever else, le marché du travail. When it comes to like workspaces, you sometimes, let's say you're a government worker, you literally get paid extra money to speak French. And there's so many other jobs where, especially in customer service, especially in retail, especially in whenever it comes to like talking to people and communications, being bilingual is a very big asset, because if somebody speaks to you in French, which will happen, especially like in Ottawa, there's a really big French population, you won't be taken aback, and you'll be able to, offer services for everybody. And ultimately, that's what we want as student leaders, to offer our services to as many people as possible. And yeah, I definitely think that's why it's very essential to be inclusive. And yes,
everyone wins.
exactly. So yeah, I think that's pretty much most of, we went through like a lot of what we wanted to talk about, and it was a really good conversation. I'm happy we were able to have it in both languages. And once again, do you have any words to, I don't know, finish a conversation, or something else you want to say, or something you want to direct to any club on campus that might be listening to this?
Yeah, I think we covered everything, but just final words. I think if you are a club or a part of a club that is not yet bilingual, I would consider strongly like trying to accommodate that, whether it's by reaching out to more club members that speak French or speak the other language, and just getting as many, like reaching out to as many people as possible. There's no way you can really go wrong in that sense.
Exactly. I feel the same way. I remember when we were having our guide applications for 101 week, I remember for the SSA, people on the application forms would have to disclose languages they were comfortable speaking. And it's not discrimination against the English speakers, because we still hired a lot of people that only spoke English, but giving a slight priority to bilingual individuals really helped create a more inclusive one-on-one week where we had a lot of students ask questions in French, and having somebody around at least every room that speaks French is super important. So again, if you're a club member or a club president and you're hearing this, or anybody involved in the recruitment of members in your association, definitely, obviously you don't want to discriminate against people that only speak one language, because that's not necessarily the point of bilingualism, but definitely encourage your members to embrace bilingualism, and also try your best to have a team that has the diversity when it comes to languages. Having a lot of people coming from French backgrounds really helps create a more, not just inclusive, but also representative environment, because you're representing all students, and all students don't only speak English. So it's definitely very important to have individuals that are more or less comfortable with English, or more or less comfortable with French, which really helps, break down barriers and ultimately leads to the success of your club. Because if everybody is in their circles, and if somebody knows a lot of French-speaking people, they might bring them along with them if they reach out to your club. So having events that are available in French really helps widen your audience, and overall just, make everybody happy and create a very inclusive environment. So yeah, I think that's all we had for today. We're going to finish the recording right here, but if you have any questions, leave them through whatever means you want. DM us, send us an email, send us a carrier pigeon, I don't know. You'll probably be able to access our ats as well if you have like personal questions to ask us. But otherwise, I think this is it. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for being here. Yes, it was my first online podcast experience.
Nice,
and yes, so we're not podcast virgins anymore, and I'm really happy to have you here. And I guess we're just going to end it here. All right.